begin our afternoon session. Thank you. The reason it's kind of dark, as I presume, so you can see the screen well. You're going to be addicted to that screen. And we want to make sure. I was telling Walter that I was going to make a secret little deal with the rest of you that while he's talking, we get out our cell phones and scroll through them. Anyway, we're just delighted to have Walter with us. I've really admired him for years. He, as I say, was a pastor early on in this congregation when the rug was maroon. Yeah. Maroon rug. Yeah. But we're going to now listen to what I know is a very important topic, and you know it too, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here. Let's bow our heads for a moment, and I'll pray, and let Walter talk to us. Lord, thank you so much for your love. Your love changed this carpet from maroon to green through the generosity of our congregation. Your love has sustained this church from Walter's time to this time. Your love has provided technology which is amazing and allows us to do so much more. So much more conveniently than we were able to do before. Walter Vyhmeister has some information he'll share with us. Please help it sink deeply in our hearts so we can contemplate its effect on our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. If you want to stand down front.
There we go. Oh, there we go. Whoa. Okay. Well, I will try to not put you to sleep. If I am putting you to sleep, I may come up with a trick. That'll keep you awake. This presentation this afternoon will seem more like a lecture than a spiritual presentation, but it's part two. It's part of what we did this morning. I don't need to repeat that, I hope. I just, maybe during the question and answers we can connect them both. We're still talking about the mind and the ways in which our mind can be hurt and some of the ways in which we can manage some of the dangers we are facing today. And so we're still on the same topic. Much of what I will share with you is found in these two books. One is called Glow Kids by Nicholas Kardaras. And I can repeat this later during the question and answer period. The other one is Screen Damage by Michael Dismerget. I think that's probably what it is, I don't know. You will see his name show up there as well. Years back, I worked at a clinic for children, and we had a clinic, but we also saw people at school or in their homes, and I was asked to go and see a child that was very difficult, and it was a 10-year-old black boy. This boy arrived home when his father was dying as a result of a gunshot. He was dying on the sidewalk in front of the house. And so here comes this boy to the house and finds his father dying, and changed him completely. From then on, this child was an angry boy, always felt that everybody owed him his dad, and he was there to collect. and it was a very difficult situation. Now, I didn't know him before I went. I just heard that he was difficult, didn't know anything else. I had documents about him, but I went to get him in this room and brought him into a little room where we were going to do therapy. About 5-7 minutes into the session, he says, "Is this all it is? I'm leaving." And he got up and started walking out. And I thought, oh boy, what am I going to do now? I have to come up with the best, most powerful intervention that I can think of to deal with this, which was my phone. He had the hand on the doorknob, and I said, "Look, if you walk out of here, I drove a long distance to come and see you. I will not come back again, and you will not get to play with my phone." And he says, "You have games in your phone?" "Of course I have games in my phone." He came right back and sat down. It was as simple as that. But then I did something that I never thought would fly. I said, "Look, the way it works, you work with me 50 minutes and you get the phone for 5 minutes. That's all I offered." And it worked. For session after session after session. Then I increased it to 7 minutes sometimes, if he was better than other times. I use that illustration a lot with my clients to tell them, to show them how powerful these gadgets are. Because these gadgets are so incredibly powerful that can destroy our children. When we give them the phone, we're handing to them all of that power. They don't know what to do with it, and we lost it. We don't have that power anymore. And so that is a very, very important thing here that I want you to keep in mind. Hello? Is it? Oh, okay. And there's a bunch of things here that I had for my introduction, but I discovered this morning that that clock is actually working. When I looked at it, I thought, that's not working. And then I looked at mine and, oh boy. So I better shorten some of these things. But there are a few things that I need to share here at the beginning. One of the evidences that we are sleeping at the wheel is that we have in this country, at least a couple of years ago when I took a seminar on this, there were 13 screen addiction detox in the country. South Korea has 400 of them. That is where we are in this pandemic. I think of it as a pandemic. Steve Jobs would not let his children touch any gadgets. They weren't allowed. The people that work at Silicon Valley, they are the ones who make the alcohol. They don't let their children drink it. They send their kids to a school that does not allow screens. There are no screens allowed in the school where those people send their children to. So they know the problem, but we don't know it. So there are a bunch of facts. Okay, so here I forgot about this part. It's working over there, but not here? Oh, okay. So there we go. I'm trying to get back to, I think the chart is okay. Are we okay? We'll just go directly to this chart. In this chart, you will notice several things. Children from 0 to 2 years of age spend about 50 minutes in front of the TV. or on screen time. That's 300 hours, about 20% of their time, 300 hours in a year. 2 to 8 years of age, they spend about 2 hours and 45 minutes daily, which is about 1,000 hours in a year, 32% of their time. 1.4 months. 13 through 18 years of age, 7 hours and 15 minutes a day. 2,000, I did an internship, it was 2,000 hours for the year. This is a full year and more, 7 hours, because they also play on Sundays and Saturdays and so on. So it's 2,600 hours. It's just beyond me. 45% of their time, 3.7 months in a year. And then 18 years and older is the equivalent of, let's see here, 30 school years or 30 school years, but I have another, or 15 years of full-time paid employment. So that's what the statistics are telling us about the use of time. I have it here, yes. It includes all screens, yeah. When we say screens, it's a way of covering everything. Now, not everything has the same impact, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, and please interrupt me at any time. If I start talking Spanish, you can also talk. That means I'm falling asleep, or maybe that's my trick to you. So when on the 2 to 8 years, is the recommended time, and we will see that later in another chart, is 1 to 2 hours a day, not 2 hours and 45 minutes. The maximum should be 2, according to the recommendations they make. I say 1, but they say 2. 13 to 18 years, they still say 2 hours. And teenagers are doing 7 hours and 15 minutes. And for adults, we don't know, but they say 2 to 3 hours a day max for a bunch of reasons. So that, I think, is to give you an idea of the problem we're facing. In spite of, there's the name of that one author, this Murget, benefits of screen. So we're going to talk a little bit about benefits of the screen use. I present a little bit from this author and a little bit from the other on the same topic. Sometimes there is a little repetition here, but I did it that way. Next time I'll probably change it. One of the advantages is access to information, and we know that it's incredible, the access to information that we have nowadays. And if you add AI now, it just blows your mind away. I have a client who works for a large company as an IT, and he says we're 4 of us. He says we use 5 AIs to run the company. We solve all sorts of problems. And he started to explain to me a little bit of how they use AI, and it blew my mind, the possibilities and how they use it. And he's a Christian, so I would say, I think this is the way heaven will be like. When your mind opens up in that direction here and in another direction there, and things that you never thought possible, or things that seemed so dark and confusing suddenly become clear. AI is an incredible tool, and so that is a positive thing in a lot of ways. Communication and socialization, it enables people to stay connected with friends, family. The seniors talk a lot about how they can connect with other people instead of being lonely. They can connect with family, share pictures, and so on. It also helps with skill development. Certain screen-based activities like educational games and interactive apps can aid in developing cognitive skills, hand-eye coordination, and problem-solving abilities. There are many other benefits, improving vocabulary, becoming aware of what's going on in the world. Okay, so some of it is skills. I went somewhere else. Then entertainment. There's lots of good entertainment in there. Games, social media can also be a source of relaxation and enjoyment. Creativity, digital tools that allow users to express creativity. Are we together? Yeah. That's the one, yeah. And so the benefits are incredible in many ways. Dr. Kardaras, in his book, Grow Kids, he also talks about educational tools, how they provide access to content that enhances learning through interactive and engaging methods, tools such as educational apps, videos, virtual stimulation can support. If I forget, somebody drop me a hint that I need to do this. So I think we're on Dr. Kardaras now. Is it matching? Yeah. Okay. And then we also have the skill development in his book. Video games, when carefully chosen, can help improve hand-eye coordination. Have you ever tried to play some of those games, especially with a child or a teenager? I have tried that. And we're on Zoom, they're on the other side, they share the screen, we're trying to play together. It's just incredible the things these kids can do. The coordination that they have to have. So you have to have that for piano playing too, but for video games is amazing. They develop special awareness, even collaborative skills through multiplayer. Certain games and apps are also designed to encourage creativity and strategic thinking. The social connectivity is also another area of strength. Social media platforms and communication tools enable children to connect with peers, families, and others. I have many children telling me that they play with kids in other countries, friends that moved somewhere. And it's quite amazing. There's just a lot of benefits to this technology. There's also the access to information. There's just about any topic you want, you will be able to find what you need. The global awareness, exposure to diverse cultures and global events through screens can help children develop empathy and broader worldview. I find it so interesting when I'm talking to teenagers, but even kids. They can find information as I'm talking, and they can share or explain things that they Google it and they share the screen. I'm trying to find my way, and they're already there and telling me what it is, And it is an amazing contribution to our culture. Sometimes I hear from managers that they have to hire them even when there are other problems that come along with this. Like they have the phone right next to the screen that they're working on, entering data or whatever, and they have to be hooked to that phone. And managers don't like that, but he says we have to have them because they know how to use the technology, And it's a new set of issues that is coming into the marketplace because of it. But Dr. Kardaras adds a caveat. He says that while these benefits exist, they are overshadowed by the risk of overuse and misuse. He argues that the benefits should be maximized only under controlled and limited exposure to avoid the addictive and harmful aspects. He also says or discusses in his book the dangers of excessive screen use, particularly among children. The most significant danger outlined in the book include cognitive, emotional, and societal impacts. And we'll talk more about that. So here are the dangers. We start with Dr. Dismurget in the book Screen Damage. He talks about how prolonged screen time can negatively affect brain development and cognitive functions in children, including attention, memory, and learning abilities. This is a very, very important problem. I have sometimes, like in this particular case, the mother says, our son has ADD or ADHD and we need help with that. I asked how many hours he spent on playing video games, and I forget what number, but it was an excessive number. And I said, well, it may be, maybe not, but we have a problem with the amount of hours. And until we bring that down, we're not going to know if it is ADD for sure or whether it is the internet. Well, I worked with this kid, and he would be playing video games while talking to me, but I would say, hey, I think you're playing video games. And he would say, no, I'm not playing video games. He would lie to me right in front of my face, and I could see the reflection, you know, on his eyes, and I forget if he had glasses, but somehow I could tell. And finally I had a talk with the parents, and I said, you know, I think that we have a problem with this internet and so on, and I explained the damages and so on, and they said, you know, we played video games when we grew up, and we are okay. I thought, are you sure? But I couldn't tell them that. And so we left it like that, but I had to tell them that I couldn't see them anymore. And their reaction was, well, we need somebody who knows how to treat ADD or ADHD. I thought, well, that's fine. We are in agreement. You need to find somebody else. And in fact, that was the last child I saw and made a decision not to see children anymore because I didn't want to teach them to be con artists. And that's what I felt I was doing. And if the parents do not support me, I have no way to control that. So it's very rare now for me to see a child through the internet. A study from Harvard Medical School indicates that excessive screen time can interfere with brain development, particularly in children. The study highlights that digital media use can provide impoverished stimulation compared to real-world experiences, affecting neural connections and cognitive functions. Children's brains are developing. That's not the time to induce impoverished stimulation. They need good, active environments to stimulate the brain cells to develop. Excessive screen use is linked to increased behavioral problems such as aggression, irritability, and reduced social interaction skills. If a child spends 3 hours in front of a screen playing video games, that child's frontal lobe is now working at its lowest level, meaning there is no modulation of emotions, there is no judgment, there is no empathy, there is no thought of the impact of his behaviors in others, is irritable. It has all sorts of problems. And they also develop psychosis where they think that they are now playing a game outside of the game. You probably heard of this teenager that went to Trump's tower and climbed on the outside because he wanted to meet Trump. They found out that he had been playing video games, I think 3 days straight through, days and nights. Now he was experiencing a psychosis, and he was in a game trying to save the world. And he needed to meet Trump for that. Well, that's what happens with these video games. We need to be aware of all of these impacts. Physical health, when they spend too much time, that leads to physical health problems, including eye strain, dry eyes, poor posture, and sedentary life, and obesity. Mental health, high screen usage is associated with mental health concerns, anxiety, depression, and sleep disturbances. You see, because when they're there, their brain is not working with all of these components to manage life issues. I often tell people, think of a committee that is assigned to build a library in town. Well, this committee is going to have to meet, and they're going to have to start learning who each other is, knowing how each other operates. And then as they start knowing each other, they learn how to execute a plan. And here, what is happening is that the committee is dormant. It's doing nothing. The brain is not active. And so the executive functioning is not engaged. And it's not practicing how to solve problems. They're mesmerized. So is a very, very difficult thing. So to manage anxiety, you need to be able to understand your problems, and you need to have strategies to manage it. The same with depression, the same with sleep disturbances, and all of that becomes dysfunctional. Overuse of screens can negatively impact academic performance due to reduced time spent on homework, reading, and other educational activities. Maybe this is the time to tell you about the $60 billion mistake. The government decided that they wanted screens on every school to enhance learning. They found out that when they did that, learning decreased by about 10%. And it was a waste of money. And if we want to improve learning, all we have to do is take the screens out. We improve it by 10% just with that. And it's a big problem. If you're reading books and material from a tablet, you will retain significantly less. I know there are percentages for this, I don't remember them. But you don't retain as well because you don't have parameters that help you remember what you're reading. When you have a book, you have a page number, you have the other page, you may have underlined things, you have many other things that help you remember the material you're reading, but not when you have a screen. So anyways, I need to make sure we are moving here. So with Dr. Carderas, then we talk again about digital addiction. And he is the one that's the clearest on this. He talks about how video games and social media can hijack the brain's reward pathways, creating a dependency akin to substance addiction. He says that there's a reference. The book emphasizes the neurological effects of screen use, equating its addictive property to drugs like cocaine in terms of dopamine stimulation. they find that the dopamine levels are as high or higher than when you're engaging on some of the more serious drugs. So when you're giving a tablet, a phone to a child, you're giving them a drug. They find that, for instance, if you have burns and you have had an accident that has given you burns all over your body, and maybe they're third-degree burns and so on, you're going to have a treatment that involves such excruciating pain that is like torture. I have seen videos of people being treated, and it's just the most awful thing to listen to, how these people are yelling because of the pain that they're experiencing. Well, so they're experimenting. I don't think this is a treatment yet. Maybe it'll never be a treatment, but they give some of these patients a game that segregates such high levels of dopamine that when they're being treated, they don't feel the pain. That's how powerful some of these games can be. So the dopamine issue is huge. If you eat broccoli, you'll get a little bit of dopamine. You'll get some from other activities. From TV, you get a little bit more. But when you're playing a video game, especially one that you really like and requires so much of you, you will be segregating huge amounts of dopamine akin to those that come from using other drugs. The prolonged screen exposure can impair brain development in children, affecting attention, memory, and problem-solving skills. I often wonder if ADD was related to watching TV, and the research is now proving that. It used to be that 10% of the population had ADD, now it's about 20%, since the use of screens. There was something else I wanted to tell you here. Well, it may come back later. Yeah, so on mental health concerns, it's about the same: anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal, academic decline, screen time interferes with learning, reducing focus at times, are we still on the same page here? Yeah. Excessive screen time interferes with learning, reducing focus and time spent on academic tasks. If you have your child in the candy store for hours, and then you tell him to come out and do his homework, or it's time for you to eat your potatoes and your broccoli, or what results do you think you're going to have? It is the most damaging thing we can do to children, and it's just a very problematic thing because we're destroying their future, and they don't know it, and parents don't know it. And this is what's so concerning to me. Excessive behavioral issues. Now, let's go to that one. Yeah, excessive screen use is linked to aggression, irritability, and that's all because of the frontal lobe shutting down after 3 hours. Screen promotes sedentary lifestyle, leading to obesity, eye strains, and some of the same things that the other researchers share. Social disconnect, again, comes up in here. For the boys, it's video games. For the ladies, it's social media. So that is a very important distinction to keep in mind, but the outcomes are very much the same. And so there's also a neurological impact. Dr. Cardara talks about excessive screen time. It alters brain structures, including reduced gray matter in areas responsible for decision-making and impulse control. I took a seminar from him. He also mentioned in there that on children, the lower brain does not develop. I checked in Google to see what lower brain was. All I got was reptiles' brain, you know, the functioning of a reptile. I don't know exactly what he means by that. But I do know that when children are below the age of 2 are watching TV, that part of the brain doesn't develop and it's a permanent damage. A lot of other damages, the brain can rewire itself, heal itself, but not from that low brain damage. So, what is the mechanism of action for screen addiction? Screen addiction involves complex neuropsychological mechanisms centered on the brain's reward system and neuroplasticity. In addition, it involves specific neurological mechanisms such as dopamine dysregulation, which we talked about, structural changes in the brain, and reinforcement loops that make it increasingly difficult for individuals to disengage from screens. And this is even designed, this issue with reinforcement loops is included in our phones, the way the phones work, the speed that the phones respond. As I understand it, they are designed to keep you on the phone because of the speed. I don't understand how that works, but it's just built into it. There is a science going on behind some of these gadgets, and especially for children and adolescents. So let's look a little bit at each of these in more detail. The issue with dopamine release, we talked a little bit about that. It creates a positive reinforcement loop, encouraging repeated use of screens to achieve the same pleasurable sensation. So you keep on doing it. The screen interactions, receiving likes or rewards in games trigger up to dopamine increases of 100 to 150%, similar to the responses from mild drug use, according to this study. According to from the presentation I heard from him, it was higher. So I wonder where that is right now. Social media platforms employ designs that mimic casino slot machines, such as random reward notifications, which make interactions addictive. So when you're waiting for a response and you're waiting for a like, when you wondering if people made a comment, all of that is designed to keep you engaged with the phone or with the gadget. Then we have the hijacking of the brain reward system. Here, some of the facts are that the nucleus accumbens is called, which is part of the brain's reward system, shows hyperactivation during gaming or social media use, reinforcing compulsive behavior. We want to manage compulsive behavior. We don't want to reinforce it. But that's what is happening with these activities. In functional MRI, scans reveal that the anticipation of rewards while gaming activities, the same brain areas. Oh, let me see if I wrote this one. Functional MRI scans reveal that the anticipation of rewards while gaming activities, the same brain areas associated with drug addiction. I am missing something on that statement. Anyways, I apologize. I will just ignore that. Something is wrong with that sentence. I missed it. Let's look at the next one here, tolerance development. Chronic screen use leads to reduced dopamine receptor density in the striatum, requiring more stimulating content to achieve the same pleasure. So tolerance is a problem. You need more. You need a better, a more interesting game. You need something more intense to keep the same level of interest. And so they escalate from casual games to highly immersive games or violent games, and all of that is bringing the child down. Then we have behavioral reinforcement, gamification tactics such as leaderboards and intermittent rewards exploit psychological and reinforcement schedules to sustain engagement. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok use algorithm-driven content to maintain user attention, increasing screen time. The prefrontal cortex, here's a little bit of what we talked about before. Excessive screen use in children has been associated with up to 10% reduction in gray matter volume in the prefrontal cortex. It isn't that it just stops functioning temporarily. You have also a reduction in gray matter, and that impacts decision-making and impulse control. Longitudinal studies show that adolescents who spend more than 4 hours daily on screen exhibit deficits in emotional regulation and delayed gratification. Another one, neuroplasticity and changes. Screen addiction alters the brain default mode network, which is critical for introspection and goal-directed behavior, leading to impaired self-awareness and emotional regulation. This is basically making this person less of a person. Do you want to be married to someone who has no ability for introspection, who is not goal-directed, who has impaired self-awareness and emotional regulation? This is not healthy at all. I find this to be one of the most problematic things, because to me it's like the person is no longer there. There isn't a person, is less and less and less of a human. Brain imaging of individuals with screen addiction shows decreased connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and other brain areas involved in self-regulation. I really wonder what that's doing to our society and how we're being affected by these the alterations of the brain. So both books provide strong recommendations for limiting screen time, emphasizing the development, the cognitive, and the psychological risk associated with excessive exposure. So here are some recommendations. We mentioned them earlier, I think, but here's in more detail. This 0 to 2 years, not screen. 3 to 5, no more than 30 minutes to 1 hour per day. The rationale is children's brains are in critical stages of development. Real-world interactions such as face-to-face communication are necessary for cognitive language and social skill development. Screens provide passive stimulation, which can impair attention spans and learning. Early exposure to screens is linked to reduced gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, which is essential for decision-making and self-regulation. The next one is adolescents, ages 6 to 18, and they are broken down into 6 to 12, and then 1 to 2 hours per day, and 13 to 18. Limit recreational screen time to, okay, so you can read all that. So the rationale is related to the cognitive and academic performance. So that's the big concern here. Excessive screen use is linked to reduced attention spans. I mean, just think about it. You are intensely focused on something that is designed to grab your attention, and now you sit in a history class, in a math class, in a social studies class. How much time can you focus on something boring when you are so captivated by this intense stuff? So it reduces attention span, memory. The children develop memory issues and declining. They have academic performance difficulties and multitasking difficulties as well. Mental health risks. They're very vulnerable to their effect, the effects of social media, which can lead to anxiety, depression, and reduced self-esteem. I had a girl that the mother came with her. I had been seeing her for a little while, a young teenager, and a boyfriend asked for pictures of her with no clothes on. She sent a picture, but she had some clothes on. And the mother found out what had happened, and she was, she hit the ceiling and talked to the family and told them that she was going to get a lawyer if those pictures showed up anywhere. But the girl would come to therapy after that, and she was afraid to not say hi to the boy, because what if he posts the pictures? I said, he's not going to do it. She would not believe me. And she was in so much anxiety, so much distress for something that she shouldn't have done, but she didn't know better. And she already had a lot of dysfunctional issues, and so she was easy prey for this young man. Anyways, those are the kinds of issues these kids face, and they end up with anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. They also have sleep disruptions. Screens, especially before bedtime, interfere with melatonin production, leading to poor sleep. But also, with some of these kids, as I found out with this one little girl, she was visiting her uncle, I think it was, and she was with her older cousins. She was about 6 or 7, I think. I don't know what movie they watched. Nobody was there apparently supervising that. It was 3 months later, and she was still not sleeping through the nights. It was just an incredible problem induced by total carelessness. And so sleep disruptions can come in many forms with children who are exposed to screens. And then for adults, am I behind here? Yeah, here we go. The recommended time is 2 to 3 hours per day, with breaks during prolonged use. Physical health is a concern because of sedentary lives. It increases the risk of obesity, eye strain, and posture-related issues. Mental health it ends up creating the risk of doom scrolling. When you're scrolling for negative things, news that are bad, and you just focus on that, you're attracted to that, then it affects you negatively in your mental health, and it can lead to stress, anxiety, and so on. And then there is also the issue of social disconnection with adults as well. some additional considerations from both authors here. Both authors emphasize that not all screen time is equal. Educational and interactive content is far less harmful than passive consumption, such as watching TV or scrolling through social media. Screens can be beneficial when used as tools for education or communication, but they should not replace real-world activities such as outdoor play, reading, or face-to-face interactions. So here are some recommendations from the authors to control this problem. They recommend screen-free zones, such as bedrooms and family meals and so on. Ensure the consistent breaks during screen use. They call it the 20-20-20 rule. Look 20 feet away for 20 seconds every 20 minutes. Encourage real-world interactions and hobbies to balance screen use. I also tell parents that when they buy a phone for a child, the phone is not the children's, it's not the child's phone. That phone is mine. I bought it. I will let you use it. It's not a right, it is a privilege. And therefore you have to meet certain conditions, like 5 minutes. You can have it for 5 minutes if you work with me 50 minutes. That was the same idea. I have seen parents control difficult children with autism with these gadgets because they're so effective and powerful. I told his mother, don't buy these gadgets. I had been working with them for a while, and these kids were very difficult to control. Next thing I know, the kids had tablets for Christmas. And I thought, what do we do now? Well, she already had learned enough, and she was actually a model of how to use these gadgets. And those kids improved significantly their behavior because she knew how to use them. You don't hand them to them, they're not theirs. I tell parents, you have to have a place where you can lock up these gadgets like a safe because the children will work on trying to find a way in, and it will happen when you're asleep or when you're not at home. I can tell you story after story about that. I have had parents who hide this stuff in the trunk of the car because they say, well, the trunk is with me, the car is with me, so I can check that, and they don't have access to it. They come up with creative things, but in my opinion, I think it needs to be even more serious than what they are recommending, but that's up to you. You know, you're the parents. So, and now I have in here a screen addiction questionnaire, and I don't think it's necessary that we go over it. I know we have it printed out, and maybe it can be distributed now to those who want it. It's 2 pages, front and back. We got this accomplished late last night because I was so behind with so many things, but Malin said, just send it over, we'll have it ready, and so there you have it. This questionnaire, I find it interesting because it's not just based on one questionnaire. They have integrated 3 validated questionnaires. This is not standardized, it's just validated. People spent some time making sure that the questions were valid, that they were measuring what they were trying to measure, but it's not a standardized test. But it can give you a guideline of the things you want to be looking for in your children. You would answer the questions for the children so that you get an idea. Other than that, I think I have covered this.
Can I ask a question, Walter?
No. Of course.
I'm just wondering if any studies have been done yet about trying to determine, A, how loss of sleep, because I know that this cuts into people's sleep, versus criminal behavior,
Oh.
versus lack of conscience. Is anybody checking to see how this is impacting society behavior at this time? The anger, the frustration that people exhibit on the roads, when if they're playing video games, they're always trying to win. Does it impact us?
How they interact with society.
In society.
Yeah.
And has anybody come up with rules of etiquette for using in a restaurant, for example? I mean, people just do not have any rules for
Yes.
when they bring their devices out, whether it's even appropriate where they are.
Yeah. I think we still have to understand that we are in the beginning of this new issue of use of screens. These studies are very recent, these books are very recent because there wasn't enough to study, or it takes a while to design a study to make it happen. So
It almost seems to me that before AI is allowed to be used then,
yeah.
they should do some of these studies to determine, because the technology is obviously way ahead of seeing how it's impacting behavior.
I hear you. I am just as concerned as you are because I see these kids behave in sociopathic ways. That's why I stopped seeing children. I see children destroyed in so many ways and become so thoughtless of others because they don't know how to interact with other people. They don't practice that anymore. They don't even want to drive cars. They don't look forward like we did, finally we're going to drive a car. They don't care. That's not of interest to them. So it's a good question. I think that there are some answers to your questions in these books. There is way more that I wasn't able to cover here. But I would say that would be one way to explore that farther, read these books in more detail. The problem is that it takes a while to be able to make those connections. You need to have enough subjects. You need to develop a way to operationalize this study, and I think we're still in the dark in some areas. But it's just like when I was thinking, that ADD was connected to screen times. People with experiencing kids with ADD. My hunch was that it was connected. Well, it took a while before that was confirmed. I think that there is a connection. When your frontal lobe is not functioning properly, you will function more and more like antisocial individual. So I wish I could tell you more.
Doctor, I understand that most of the parents are saying, well, we've got to give the children a phone because they're at school, or we need to make contact with them, we'll lose contact. So this is an excuse. But what do you say? How do you deal with that?
I have tried. I have told parents, get those flip phones. And one parent told me, I did. I found it in the toilet. So, yeah, it's very difficult. But I think that part of the problem is that parents are starting to see the problem too late. And if you start early with the kids, then they understand what the rules are. And you can actually, they have ways to control a lot of the phone activity and check it out. There are apps, and you have to be a technician, technologically savvy nowadays to have kids, because you have to be able to know what it can be done to control the kids. And
Well, I think that the kids are already the parents.
exactly.
They don't know anything else either.
Yeah, that's the thing. The parents are also,
Just everybody's on the same.
we're all in the same boat, sinking together.
Pastor, you have mentioned the children. I want to know if the adults that we started with the screens later, we didn't grow up in this, but we kind of were pushed into it. And does it affect us, because we already have developed brains, supposedly, does it affect us in changing the way our brain is now as adults with the constant use of screens, any kind of screen, for hours and hours? Does it affect us in a way, maybe not as the children, but like those sociopathic things, that you mentioned?
I think that there is always an impact, but with the children is the problem that the brain is developing, and you are affecting things that could be more permanent. With adults, we have the brain already functioning. When you drink alcohol, it affects your brain, but then you can sort of rewire. People have told me, I stopped drinking 10 years ago, and they're functioning well and succeeding. And so I think that there is a comparison like that can be made, but it's a very, I'm not thinking of any studies to corroborate that at the moment. Yeah. I'm not an expert in this area, by the way. This is just one area that I am interested in, and I have done some continuing education, and then you made me study more, so. But yeah.
Oh, right here. Is there any research, anything you've heard of comparing the state that people are in when they're on these devices to hypnosis and the way the brain's affected? And if so, why aren't we taking this more seriously? If it is, I don't know if it is, but I'm wondering if you know anything about that.
I don't know anything about that. Hypnosis is studied in psychology, but I don't have any training in it. I think that they alluded to the fact that the functioning, when they're watching it, the activity in the brain diminishes so much that the brain is not being stimulated. That, I think, is the closest I can get to that issue. But and this psychosis, where you now see the world differently, you're part of the game, the world is the place to play, So, but I don't know about hypnosis. That's a good question, though. Yes?
Pastor, I have ADHD, which I'm going to call pre-screen ADHD because I didn't grow up watching lots of screens. But I'm wondering, because ADHD includes a lot of lower dopamine levels, if you have any ideas of alternative sources for dopamine?
Alternative sources?
From
Maybe,
just practical everyday.
Yeah, we have our psychiatrist here somewhere. Maybe he can tell us what the answer might be to that. Maybe he left. Huh? Werner, Dr. Werner, something, he's not here. I think that would be a psychiatric question. I don't know the answer to that. Sorry.
First, thank you for sharing that information.
You're
I think it's
welcome.
great, and I think that the next step, probably, I don't know if there is any research on this topic, but combined with the screening time and the algorithms that are used to code those video games and things, there is also the message that is on some of those games or social media and things that is affecting, I think, the question that Martha was asking. I'm not an expert on anything, but I'm old enough to see how society has been changing in the last 20, 30 years. And I think it's related to that. And there are subliminal messages that are in some of those games or programs or anything that had to do with social media, that sometimes people are not even aware, and they are not aware that they are changing because of those messages. And I think that is affecting the youth population, is all being affected by these things.
There's a good documentary called The Social Something.
Normalized aggression.
It normalizes aggression and so on. But there's just a lot of pain that kids experience in social media for things that seem so normal, like a friend is going to a party with other friends, and this one finds out in Facebook that he or she did not get invited. And she told me or he told me that we're good friends, and now this person is experiencing that rejection when perhaps it wasn't even intended. But there's just a lot of stuff like that that is constantly happening to people.
My daughter, who was a nurse and went all through nursing school with this young woman they were very close friends, and they both had boys the same age. And when the boys got to be probably 12 or 13, the boy started getting these video games that were extremely violent. And one of them was you get points for raping somebody and you get points for murdering somebody. And so my daughter said, you can't go over to his house and play those games with him anymore. And the mother got so angry that she basically divorced my daughter and the whole family because she had said, you can't go over there and play that game.
See, I can tell you story after story of kids that are going nowhere. The parents want me to fix their child, and I don't even get support from them. And then they're engaging in things like that where all they're exposed to is aggressive behaviors, and it becomes part of their way of thinking. And I often think about all these mass shootings and how much time they have spent shooting on the TV, on the video game. And
By the way, this was a very popular game.
Oh yeah, they tell me about these good games, they think, Mario and other games like that they say. I say it's not part of it is the game. Part of it is how much time you're on the game. And so they say, well, they play Legos, a game of Legos that is virtual Legos, I say, that's not the same as having the Legos on the floor and sitting and building something with your fingers and having the frustration of that falling apart and all sorts of things that you have to do. Video games it may seem the same thing, but it's not. And also the education games. So there are games that parents call educational games. We bought our child an educational game. I say, okay, can I see it? And they let me watch the game. And I say, well, there are a few words that the child is learning, but most of the time he's not learning words or vocabulary or reading. He's playing a game. And you have to be very careful with the notion of learning. We let the kids have learning games, but we made sure that they were learning games. And there are some good games that help you learn. But yeah, it's another area that's difficult. Well, you have been such good students. Yeah.
Do you think that you mentioned something that I've been thinking about, and is that this is so new. You were answering to Carolyn. This is so new
Yeah.
that we are starting to see the effects, and sadly, society at large, I've seen, we humans have to test things to find out how bad they are.
Yeah.
Nobody really thinks beforehand and says, I wonder what this would be like if we
Yeah.
do this. Nobody ever thinks that.
Yeah.
And because we're moved by money,
We're
then we
moved
just
by
go.
money.
We
And-
go with it. Money is the most important thing.
And convenience and
Yes.
practicality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that because of what you're describing, and I actually have seen it in my job, and I'm a medical interpreter for Spanish, and I hear the doctors constantly saying, the parents, the pediatricians, less than 2 hours, and what you just said, they're telling the parents, okay, the screens and all that stuff. But I am amazed because the parents outside are sitting with their phones and not interacting with their child at all.
I see it at the restaurants. You know, when I work with kids, my dream and goal was, that was the best time of my life working with kids. It was so much fun. And you sit down on the carpet and play with the kid.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, okay, I'm doing this. I came to your home to do this. Mom, I want you to watch what we're doing here because I want to see you continue this when I leave. No, they would think of me as their babysitter. Oh, you're going to play. Okay, come in. And then they go and do other things. I had so much difficulty getting the parents to sit down and play with the child. If you want to help your child effectively, you have to play with your child. It's not an option. It's not a pet. It's a child. It's your child. And you're going to have to... Yes, yes. And so you don't say, look, I have all these toys for you. No, you get down on the carpet and play. And then when they're playing, maybe you can take a little break, but then you come back. Or when they call you, you come back and you're attentive so that they can be engaged. That's how the child feels safe and feels that they're doing what is natural to them. Children want to learn. Children want to be good. They just need to be given the opportunity and the support and the acknowledgement when they're doing it.
So maybe what the question would be, do you think that it would be very big difference if the parents were the ones having the actual therapies, not the children?
Well, that's what I would, when I did the therapy, I would, yes, have as much time as I could. But usually I would spend I would require 5 or 10 minutes with the parent at the beginning. But parents are busy also. I don't want to just say that they're neglectful and so on. It takes two now to support a home, and children fall through the cracks. You know.
And it depends where you want to invest your life.
Yes.
And I think what's happening is this gradual declination of responsibility and wanting babysitters. So we give that child something that, oh, don't bother me, I want to do something else. So our self-centered ego is the one that's stopping us from investing. And if we really care, we invest in our mental health as well to support that.
Yeah. I tell parents, you're both working, you're busy, but if you're not paying attention to your children, the extra money that you're making right now, you're going to spend it down the road. It may be legal fees, it may be detox places. It just doesn't work to neglect your child. It may be therapy. I had a girl that grew up, she basically parented herself alone. And she was always being so aggressive with other kids, and she didn't know how to interact with them. And that was my work. And the parents could not understand that we had already a problem here, that he was created because the parents were trying to keep 2 jobs. And they really could have made it with 1. I mean, even 1 was a pilot, for a big airline. And still, both of them needed to make money. And so the poor girl was paying the consequences now. Yeah. Oh. And we're going to be depressed by the end if we keep talking. You're very welcome, very welcome. I'm so glad to I think Gary is the one that created this whole thing.
I'm not playing games.
Yeah.
I'm just psychotic.
Yeah.
But Walter, we want to thank you.
You're very welcome. I was, yeah. Thank you. I am glad that it was helpful to you.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Okay, you're very welcome.
By the way, if anyone wants to explore this further, and there's just volumes that you just didn't have time. Both of the books, although the Glow Kids is a very
habit changing. Yeah.
Well, your mic's not on.
Yeah, well, I turned it off. I don't know. I can talk to him on the phone if he wants. Because if not, I would be repeating what everybody heard.
All right.
Have him call me.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for coming. We were going to have a quick word of prayer. Let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for the opportunity you've given us today to listen to all the things that Pastor Vyhmeister has learned over time now. And we ask you that you can use us to help and be aware of what's happening so we can help each other and be careful so we can protect our minds and we can communicate more clear with you. Please help us get closer to you and to protect this organ that has been it's so important and key to get to know you better. Thank you for your love and for being here with us today. Please bless the ministry of Pastor Vyhmeister. Thank you for everything in Jesus' name. Amen.